and WCCO Radio are very proud to welcome the new WCCO, Channel 4 WCCO TV.
Channel 4, Minneapolis and St. Paul.
It's been my life. It's been a big part of my life.
I didn't have any idea we had so much fun.
I learned about myself, I learned about the business, I learned about people.
WCCO just led the way.
WCCO TV.
Satellite.
Now the bedtime news.
It's time now for the 10:15 weather story with Bud Kraehling, presented by Robert Hall, serving the Twin Cities with 7 conveniently located family clothing centers. For greater savings plus greater value, take your family to Robert Hall.
Well, the weather had a great struggle again today as far as the temperature is concerned. We looked like we were going to get to 50, but 41 degrees was the high. And why is the concern about 50? Well, it's the number we keep forecasting every day is the high for tomorrow. Right now, in the Twin Cities at 10:15, our temperature reading is 34 degrees, 3-4 on temperature. Humidity, 76%, 76. Barometer, 30.03 with the pressure falling. The wind is from the west at 6 miles an hour, and I guess we can't get any warmer temperatures if we're going to have these cold fronts all the time. Well, you can put 2 to 2 together and figure that one out. There's a cold front that runs from the northern part of Wisconsin to the northern part of Texas, and it's indicated on the map in a line like this. Another cold front that runs right through our 5-state area, and no wonder the temperatures didn't get too high today. There in 59 degrees at Chicago, 52, the skies are cloudy at New York, 76, partly cloudy at Miami. Denver is 53 with the skies clear. A nice warm day in the southwest, 80 degrees fair skies at Los Angeles, and 54 degrees with cloudy skies at Seattle. And a big weather system here in the southeastern part of the country that brought considerable rain to that area. Here's the forecast now for North Dakota. It'll start us off on our 5-state weather picture for tomorrow. Variable cloudiness in North Dakota with afternoon showers and 40 to 62 degrees on temperature range. South Dakota with also variable cloudiness with some showers in the western part of the state, and here 52 to 62 degrees temperature range for tomorrow. Iowa, partly cloudy skies, temperatures tomorrow ranging 40 to 55 degrees. Wisconsin, partly cloudy, a little shower in the northeastern corner of the state, and 35 to 48 degrees for tomorrow.
Well, July 1st of this year marked the 25th anniversary of Channel 4, and I guess I ought to know, because I've been around longer than the caller, WCCO TV. Who would get that guy? Since the beginning, July 1st, 1949, we've advertised that our secret is people. Now, we don't want to make a liar out of millions of dollars worth of advertising spent to create that illusion, not to mention the promotion.
Gee, we really have it rough in promotion.
Would you believe that 6 months ago, I didn't have any hair at all? Now, you can see what's happened. Try Super Cookie, the brand new hair tonic. It comes in this very familiar bottle, and you can drink it, or you can put it on your hair. I don't think I could manage my hair without it. Try good old Super Cookie. Okie dokie?
We couldn't get him to come down here on Sunday, so we have to do this a little early. Sunday marks a very special day for one of the institutions here at WCCO Television, one who's been in place for more than 4 decades. Sunday is Bud Kraehling's 70th birthday.
Neither rain nor snow nor frigid temperatures keep Bud Kraehling from his appointed task.
My lips are frozen. I'll see you back at the...
Bud is the only person who's been on the air as long as WCCO television itself, since before 1949. He's survived the years of grease pencil forecast maps, cutout weather figures, and the advent of all the latest gizmos and gadgets. Never without his trusty weather pointer, pointing out the highs and the lows from Hackensack to Good Thunder, all with one profound thought in mind.
That the more things change, the more they stay the same.
It's always weather with a smile, even when things don't go Bud's way.
The humidity is not quite so bad tonight, and so this push is a whole lot easier.
If we could change the picture here, I'd tell you just how cold it got in 1912, though I
think the machine is frozen.
We're stuck here. We hit it a couple of times and no.
Good work.
Bud Kraehling is a man for all seasons, prepared for it all, a man of many talents. Bud's a man who wouldn't miss a fair or last night's Tater Day parade.
Hello!
Oh, happy birthday,
Thank
Bud.
you very much. I've got to start practicing on my cornet right now. You did
a pretty good job.
I usually play only once a year on the 4th of July. I learned that.
Well, was that audience you had there, were those the neighbors, or did you bring that group in?
The neighbors come across the street.
I bet they do. Here's a guy who has been around a very long time, speaking in terms of television, almost 20 years with WCCO TV, half as long as Bud. You started watching Bud down in Sleepy Eye, didn't you?
Oh, yes. Years ago, I remember watching Bud, and I was just a little kid, and I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up, as a weatherman.
But look what you did. You fell on your face.
Bud's still here, so I had to settle for second. I had to settle for second best then in the sports department.
Tonight we have a very special dimension.
We sure do. Weatherman Bud Kraehling has retired after 50 years here at WCCO. And we thought it only fitting to let Mike Fairborn introduce tonight's tribute. Mike?
Thank you, Amelia. You know, Bud Kraehling never had the opportunity to do the weather here from our rooftop garden. This is about the closest thing to the Shell weather tower that we could come up with. But as you mentioned, Bud, after 50 years, is retiring officially here from WCCO, and it's been my honor and my privilege to share almost 20 years of those 50 years with this Twin Cities television legend. And Cindy Hilger has our Dimension tribute tonight.
For so many of us, we can't think of TV weathercasts without conjuring up the vision of Bud Kraehling.
The humidity is not quite so bad tonight, and so this push is a whole lot easier.
From the early years atop the mythical Shell weather tower, Bud became a master of many trades.
Your Honor, my grandson is a fine boy, and if he said the robot did this to him, I believe him.
Bud was a commercial spokesman par excellence. He had an enormous capacity to memorize several commercials consecutively.
Bill Carlson also started as a staff announcer and weatherman when the station was WTCN.
You didn't specialize that much in those early days unless you showed a particular ability with some area. And of course, Bud was the outstanding weatherman for this area for many years.
But to hear Bud tell it, his success was more, well, serendipitous.
I just happened into it. The first weather on TV, I was substituting for a man who went on vacation. And it was sponsored by Tasty Bread, and I did a better commercial, I guess, than he did, so the sponsor had me stay on.
That was 50 years ago, and from the start, Bud developed a large and loyal following, including a rookie TV anchorman, Dave Moore.
I remember he was a member of one of the elite announcing staffs, radio announcing staffs in town. I think at one time he may have been the best known, most recognized face in Minnesota.
When Dave joined the staff, he and Bud became an inseparable duo on and off the news set.
And it was the start of what many people have called happy talk time, where there would be conversation to bridge the gap from the news to the weather. I would tell Dave, well, I'll start talking to you. Don't you start talking to me. I want to start talking to you.
Bud worked hard over the years to keep the weathercast fresh.
Members of my family would prod me to think of something different to do, so I added flowers and birds and some gardening.
Bud often treated audiences to his other talents as well, like his musical talent every 4th of July. and Bud's photography of his travels around the world, here in a gallery exhibit several years back. One of his greatest TV assets is that indispensable ability called flexibility, says former WCCO producer Dana Benson, now news director at KMSP.
He had a peculiar skill, I remember, doing the weather, that he might lift his hand to point at a graphic he thought was going to be there, and the wrong one would come up, and he'd just go with it. And he'd pretend like he was pointing at something else entirely and just move right on.
And in this business of egos and deadlines, Bud always put people first, something the audience always appreciated and thanked him for at the State Fair.
Oh, this is a thrill of my life. I got to touch you.
I used to watch you all the time when I was a little kid.
Oh, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. I know.
It's so good to see you.
Thank you.
It's been a long time.
Been a long time.
For these people, as for many of us, Bud's retirement will be a loss.
But it might be not unlike a couple who have been married many, many years. There's some comfort in knowing that he's there. And that at any moment I might see him sauntering out from the weather center over here. He's been my life here. He has been the highlight of my 47 years here.
Bud is hanging up his maps for now, but we'll never see another broadcaster quite like him.
This week, after 46 years with this television station, imagine that. That includes 3 years with its original radio station, WTCN. Bud Kraehling will conclude 38 years of mistakes as a television weather reporter. He'll not vanish from the scene altogether. He'll broadcast weather updates, do more reporting for our cable enterprise, but his scheduled broadcasting will be over. Bob Franzen is a man who's been a very capable broadcast executive in the Twin Cities for many years, and he loves to tell the story of how he gave Bud Kraehling his start. Bob was our weather forecaster back in '54. Everyone seems to think that was that year, when he made the mistake of taking a vacation to be replaced by this station announcer. Probably the most fateful vacation in the history of local broadcasting. I must say, however, what really made Bud Kraehling was this interview broadcast on the bedtime news in December of 1973.
So often I get the question, is Bud Kraehling really a weatherman, or does he just read some information prepared for him by someone else? Where do you get your weather from, Bud?
Well, a lot of it comes out of the West.
I mean, all those charts and graphs and instruments you use.
Oh, well, they don't mean very much. I usually call the Weather Bureau.
Call the Weather Bureau?
Yeah, I say, hi there, what's the weather? And I write it down, and then I say it out loud to the folks.
Well, don't you have to study the high and low pressure systems and the occluded fronts and the stationary troughs and all that sort of thing?
Well, they have a way of working out.
What has a way of working out?
Well, those things, whatever you said, those fronts, those things.
Yeah. What kind of education does one need to be a television weatherman?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, such a technical subject as meteorology, it must require some special training.
Oh, well, just living here in Minnesota is an education in the weather.
Oh, how do you mean?
Well, like in the summertime, I go outside and the sky is dark and I know it's going to rain.
Yeah, if it doesn't rain?
Well, then we'd go on a picnic.
When did you first get the idea that you wanted to be a television weatherman?
Oh, I was a lad in grade school, and I'd wear my raincoat, and it wouldn't rain. And then I wouldn't wear it, and it would rain.
So?
Well, I knew I was qualified right there to be a weatherman.
This is kind of disappointing, really, to find out that you're not...
I get tired of people talking to me about the weather all the time, really. Why don't you ask me about my hobbies or current events?
What about current events?
Well, I'm not so hot on current events. I never listen to you when you're doing the news. I'm working on the weather.
Yeah, that's the folks on the street, people on the street you see all the time, what's the question most frequently asked?
Well, in the summertime, they ask me, is it hot enough for you? And then in the wintertime, they say, is it cold enough for you?
And what do you answer?
Yeah, it is.
Time has wrought some changes.
A few.
The Sunshine Boys on Golden Pond. Is there a specific day for your leaving your regular... I want to emphasize this. You're not leaving the station.
Right.
They're just your new news. You're giving that up.
No, we haven't really picked a day yet. Sometime next week, I think, might be one of the days. I'm not really retiring. I want to emphasize that. I'm just slowing down a little bit more.
Have you resisted this move? They get you kicking and screaming as I did?
I've been dragging my feet a little bit. Not too much, though. But I've been slowing down, though, about 15 years or so now. Yeah. When I first met my wife-to-be, Natalie, she described our relationship as going at 2 different speeds and used the analogy of the phonograph record speed. She always said she went at 78 revolutions per minute and I went at 33 1/3. But I'm going a lot slower than that.
Slowing down to 50. Yeah. I think the station is discriminating. First I leave and then you, or we're removed. I think the station discriminates against senility. I think senile people all over the country ought to stand up and... What a good Lord, 38 years as a weather forecaster. The sponsors were very important back in the early days. What's the first sponsor? Who's that first one?
The first sponsor I had was Tasty Bread, and I was the Tasty Weatherman. And you would see the elaborate set, and look at that suit. Back in the early 1950s, there was the one map and then those little panels on the side. The hardest thing about it was to keep a loaf of bread on hand because the commercials were live. You had to have a loaf of bread to talk about.
You did the commercials?
I did the commercials. You had to have a loaf of bread in your hand, and somebody would always eat 2 or 3 slices out of your bread during the evening.
You're left with the crust.
Then, after the Tasty Bread weatherman, I became the Shell Weather Tower weatherman.
The most famous local television site in the history of the business.
That was fun. I wore a jacket, the Shell jacket. It was one big commercial. You see Shell in about 7 different places there. Nobody drank any of my Shell gasoline, though, so we always...
But in the studio, I remember, I was the booth announcer on those occasions. In the studio, the camera would start at the bottom and had that zooming music, and it would slowly pan up to the top, and there you were in an overcoat.
We had a drawing of a weather tower, and it looked like you were climbing the weather tower, and then you would go to this little building in the studio, and there again I did the live commercials for Shell gasoline and for Shell oil and all their products.
Switchboard operator put the call in the announce booth, and they'd ask, where is that Shell weather tower? I said, well, you go out County Road 52 and turn left and you get to it. Well, we'll be around for at least a couple of more days.
All right.
All the days dwindle down
to a precious few.
September,
November,
and these few golden days
I'll share with you, Big Finish.
These golden days
I'll share with you. We better say
we may not be good, but we have a lot of fun, don't we?
Yeah, there are some people who want to throw a few comments your way, Bud, so unfortunately you're in the hot seat here, and we're going to start with Mike Fairborn.
I'll just stand by here.
Yeah, I didn't think this day would ever come. Bud Kraehling has been here forever, and he was going to be here forever, I guess, in my opinion. It's amazing. Over the years, when I've gone out and been recognized, people ask me, even though Bud hasn't been on the air for a few years now, how's Bud? Where's Bud? What's he doing? And it's that love that he left in this community that is just unbelievable. And he did it before the days of Doppler radar and high tech and everything else. It was just because the people trusted Bud. Bud is one of the finest communicators in this entire television business. We kind of have the middle guard. We've been celebrating some of their accomplishments, Larry Schmidt and Al Crocker and all those, and then there's the old guard, the Dave Moores and the Bud Kraehlings, people that got into television when television was just beginning, and to hear Bud tell some of the stories of the live commercials that they did, it was amazing that they kept the station on the air, that they had enough time to prepare for those and do the commercials and still get enough money in to keep a television station running. But
I don't think we didn't prepare.
You know, I have never heard Bud complain. We all kind of get bogged down in our situations from time to time and get a little gnarly down in the newsroom and complain about our circumstances and situations, but I've never heard Bud complain. I've never heard anyone complain about Bud. I've never talked to anyone that doesn't love Bud Kraehling. And I think that's a testimony here today as well, Bud, to see all the people that came to celebrate this with you. I spent a couple of winter carnival parades with Bud over in St. Paul. He taught me the meaning of antifreeze, and there were a few winter carnival parades that he was feeling no pain when the rest of us were suffering and freezing to death out there. And not only that, but our Weather Center Christmas parties are not the same without Bud and his eggnog and his brandy. And so, Bud, whenever we have those Christmas parties, we'll let you know, and you're not only invited, your attendance is mandatory. If I were to sum Bud up in a couple of words, it would be a gentle gentleman. And that's what Bud Kraehling is, and that's why we love him, and that's why we're going to miss him around that weather center here a lot. Bud, congratulations.
Bud made 50 years. You know, that's half a century, and I'm so pleased and proud that I could have spent 46 of those 50 years with Bud here at good old Channel 4. Bud, I owe you so much. In fact, I can recall when, after working diligently for weeks and weeks, I finally got a day off, and I was sitting at home relaxing with my dear wife, Christine, and the phone rang, and Sherm Headley was on the line, and he said, "Gallus, get down here. We need you to do a live commercial." And I said, "Well, Sherm, this is my day off, first one in a month. Can't you get the announcer on duty to do it?" He said, "No, we can't do that." He said, "The announcer on duty is Bud Kraehling, and the commercial is for hair tonic." Absolutely true story. And I'd like to embellish what Mike Fairborn said about those winter carnival parades. We prepared for those like, you know, getting ready to go to the Arctic to do battle against the Norwegians and the Swedes. I put on several layers of clothing and ended it with a snowmobile suit and a hood and the whole thing. But the best device to protect us was that liquid nourishment that was provided by Tom Cousins. Jugs and jugs of rum drinks. And we felt no pain at all. And it was after one of those parades, Bud, that we lost track of you. As Mike kind of hinted, we conducted a basement to attic search of our old studios there at on 9th Street, and we finally found Bud in the basement, cuddled up against the furnace, completely out of it. And I thought, there's a man who loves his work. Now, on the more serious level, though, I can't think of a nicer person for me to come here in the year 1950 and to have as a role model Bud Kraehling, who showed us the ropes. Dave and I, Dave Moore was there too. And Bud always did it so gracefully. He made difficult tasks look easy because of his almost nonchalant approach to television. And I think he made us realize that we were not that important. We were just there to do a job. And Bud did it with such grace and charm. And in those days, as I say, there were no teleprompters. We had to memorize everything. And Bud, along with Dave, was one of the quick studies. And I had to really scramble to keep up with those guys. But I have many, many happy memories. And Bud, I can't believe that you're walking out of those doors. But we're going to stay in touch, I hope. And it's been a pleasure getting to know not only you, but your charming wife, Natalie. And we wish both of you well, and God bless.
On behalf of the TV Alumni Association, we wish to honor you for 50 years of broadcast service at the station and more than 50 years in broadcasting, which is really something. 50 years here at this station plus other years. That was down in Iowa? Illinois, okay. So anyhow, you're probably the only person in the Twin Cities that's worked in this business as long as you have. I would think, okay. We wish to present to you a 50-year paid-up Remember, this is paid up. Lifetime membership in the WCCO Alumni Association. Now, we also wish you a very happy retirement and a healthy retirement, Bud. And I want to thank Glenn Devery, our staff artist, our alumni staff artist. Glenn, you listening? Okay. For helping us out and printing up this card for you, Bud.
Oh, it's an artistic masterpiece.
Yeah, right.
Oh, free, gratis, and no charge. Okay. The honorable, I love that. Oh. And did anybody not sign this?
Yeah.
Leave it up here to be signed. Thanks.
Yeah, okay, Bud. You're welcome. Thank you. Many happy years.
Thank you.
Ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Sorry, but the party's over.
That's all. Okay. Dave just ran out of money. What?
Not yet.
No, not.
Okay, fine.
Another 5 minutes. Okay.
Dave Moore wants to say a
there's
couple
another
things.
speaker. Okay.
John, you mean people pay dues to that outfit? Jesus, God Almighty, get a rebate before you go to one of the lunches.
I wonder why you haven't gotten a newsletter.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm going to set the record straight on the Winter Carnival Parade and the jug of martinis. I saw him chug-a-lugging. And the following Monday I said, how did you do the weather? He came back and did the weather. Well, he said, I didn't do the weather, I went right home. I said, no, you didn't. You did the 6 o'clock. No, he said, I was so out of it, I went home. The fact of the matter is he did the weather and drove home. This was before Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And he does not remember, he did not only remember not doing the weather, he didn't remember going home, and I think he came back at 10 o'clock.
I remember that.
Yeah, and Cullen Card, who was his playmate in that little bit of japery, we hadn't seen him for weeks thereafter. I see so many people here that remind me of what happened. Oh, God, I hate this crap. If this happens to me, don't do it, will ya? When this comes my turn to be here, don't do it. I'll take an extra piece of cake right now. And we'll go down to Augie's and get smashed. Yeah. It was all laughs. When John said the laughs they were having in the room, you screwed it up for all of us when Handberg moved his office in. Nobody had any fun up there anymore. They're all being, but it was all laughs. I see Bob Ritter, and Ritter comes to work one day, and there and Bud and I are standing outside enjoying the early night evening. They're on 9th Street, and Bud's doing this. And Bob Ritter said, is that what the hell I've been paying for the last 15 years? You know, Bob, that's the way we did it in those days, and nobody ever complained. Ed Conrad is here. Ed Conrad was the first television camera director. Ed Conrad, a guy named Ed Scott, Sherman Headley. The first day, about an hour after I had been hired by a production director named Chuck Miller. I hired because he'd had no experience or no familiarity with the town. He said, wait down here. And he went upstairs to his office, and I stood in the lobby, and they had a speaker. We were WTCN Radio and Television. And on the radio was Bud Kraehling and Bud's Little Show. For someone who had aspired to be a radio announcer, we didn't have real lofty ambitions in those days. WTCN, in my view at that time, I was a young man, had the best, the most exceptional and professional announcing staff. I knew all those guys by name, knew all their names. And among them, Bud Kraehling, who had a little record show called Bud's Little Show. Chuck Miller told me to wait down in the lobby for him. I'll be right back. But the little radio control room, the whole entire radio station is on the 3rd floor. So I ran up, and I knew right where I was because that's where I had taken my audition. and I saw in the booth there was Bud. I just see the top of his bald head. And I wanted to open the door and introduce myself and say, hi, I'm Dave Moore, I'm the new guy here. I opened the door, there's Bud sitting like this. The newspaper is in front of him. So I quickly shut the door and sat back. Waited, he was about to broadcast. Let's take a quick look at the news headlines. There's the Pioneer Press. Seeing Conrad reminded me, and then I introduced myself to Bud and I came back down. And the next day I did my first stint as a radio staff announcer. I suppose I've told this story because when you get to me at my age, you tell these stories over and over again. Ed Conrad was the director in the control room. I thought it was Bill Metchnick, but Ed said it was he. And he cued me. Good afternoon, time for Around the Town with Arlie Haberly. Arlie intros first guest and cues commercial. Right out of the book. He said, that's the way. But here was the crowning blow happened this morning to me in the Medical Arts Building, a building in which I find myself more than just casually acquainted in these last few days. I'm about to go to the elevator, and there's an old geezer, 70 or so, sitting on the bench and says, hey, Dave. And I heard him say something about retirement, so I went over to hear him better. What was that? He said, I read in the paper this morning you're retiring. And I said, no. That's Bud Kraehling who's retiring. Oh, well, same thing. I thought to myself, how fortuitous. That will be my closing line today. My closing line today will be, I'm sorry that all of you didn't have the same kind of opportunity that John and I and John Siebers and the rest of the old timers here have had working with this man. Because there's really been nothing like him. I know there's never been anything or anyone like him in any radio or television station in the U.S. And I'm sorry to say, for the sake of all of you, there never will be again. It was a real pleasure for me.
Bud, I really wish you the very, very best. You can't believe how many people have grown up with Bud Kraehling on the news, on the weather, and you are clearly a Minnesota legend, and on behalf of all the people of Minnesota, I wish you the very, very best, and thank you so much for your service.
Bud, we did literally dozens of Minnesota State fairs together, and we're going to miss you on the broadcast side. I expect we're going to be seeing you out at the fair anyway. It's been a long, very, very pleasant ride with you. We're looking forward to many more years of friendship.
Here, you've been here 50 years, and of course that says one thing about you. It speaks volumes. It talks about loyalty. It talks about really how special you are. And the one thing that really meant a lot to me is when I came to WCCO, I was a newcomer on the block. I had huge shoes to fill as I took your position, and you were so gracious and so kind to take me under your wing and introduce me to the Twin Cities, and you continued coming on the noon show, providing us with Bud Kraehling, so it really, I think, helped me take shape here in the Twin Cities because of how you acted as though you liked me, and I hope you did. I've had some great times with you, some great laughs.
But as far as I'm concerned, you're the best that ever was, and you're the best that ever will be. Now, that wonderful combination between that courtly, gentlemanly, gentle nature, chock full of information that everybody wanted to hear, from the sounds that birds make to the sounds that great poets make. And when you teamed up with Dave Moore, that will go down in history as probably the best anchor-weather combination ever. And quite frankly, I miss it. And I wish I could watch it every night.
Okay, Bud. Well, I just want to wish you a happy retirement. Make sure all your days are sunny and 80, and may you enjoy watching all the birds. I do have a confession to make, Bud. You know your weather map from the 70s and the old building, the Cube? Yeah, I got it in my garage, and I stole all your partly cloudy symbols. See you later, Bud. Bye-bye.
I grew up with Bud Kraehling. I looked forward to seeing his smiling face on the television sets early in the morning. I counted on him when I was trying to figure out what the weather was going to be as I went on my way to school. All the best to you, Bud.
Bud, I can't believe that we're really, to this day, that I've had the privilege of sharing almost 20 of the 50 years that you've been here at WCCO with you. I still, every place I go, people ask me, where's Bud? How's Bud doing? And it's a pleasure for me to tell them, at least in the past, that you were right here with us side by side, right up at least until today, and we're really going to miss you. The one thing, I guess, if I could say about Bud Kraehling that people ask me about, and that is that he is a gentle gentleman, and that's what you are, Bud, and it's been a pleasure to be with you.
Well, Bud, this is John Gallus. It's been a real privilege to have been with you for 46 of your amazing 50 years at CCO. Let me close with the last few lines of Casey at the Bat. Oh, somewhere in this favored land the sun is shining bright, and bands are playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light, and somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy at Channel 4. Mighty Kraehling has moved out. Best of luck, Bud.
Wir, perfekt.